I will now give a presentation and demonstration on how Cisco Secure Firewall integrates with Azure Application Insights. So what is Azure Application Insights? Public clouds generally have a monitoring solution that is offered as a service. For example, AWS has CloudWatch, there's Google Cloud's Operations Suite, and so forth. The Azure monitoring platform is called Azure Application Insights. You publish metrics to the Azure Application Insight, and then those metrics can be viewed in the Azure portal or retrieved by some third-party product. The way that this is implemented is with a small piece of code that you put into your application. The code then communicates with Application Insights. Now, how does the Cisco Secure Firewall integrate with Azure Application Insights? In the 7.0 release, we have introduced that bit of code into our Cisco Secure Firewall. And the health monitoring metrics can be exported to Azure Application Insights. In order to do this, we've added to the REST API. These added API calls will configure the firewall to communicate with Azure Application Insights. Note that this is only done with the device REST API. Therefore, it is not available on devices managed by FNC. Furthermore, you cannot do this through the CDO or FDM UI. The user retrieves the key from Application Insights and sends those API calls to the firewalls. The firewalls then have the capacity to send health monitoring statistics to Azure Application Insights. Let's go through the high-level configuration, which will be reinforced in the demonstration. First, you have to create an object called a Log Analytics Workspace. A Log Analytics Workspace is a unique environment for Azure Monitor log data, in this case, Azure Application Insights. This workspace has its own data repository and configuration. The next object you create is the Application Insight resource itself. You then retrieve the instrumentation key from the overview page of the Application Insights object. You then open the API Explorer and you go to the Device Metrics section. There will be two particular items there. One's called Azure Application Insights and the other is called Device Metric Integrations. You will have to make two API calls to configure this feature. The first API call is used to tell the firewall the instrumentation key so it is capable of communicating with Azure Application Insights. Once you make that call, you look at the response body, and from it you get the ID of that object. You use that ID in the more complicated Device Metrics Integration API call. It is also in this API call that you specify the metrics you wish to utilize, as well as the period of time that you will upload those metrics to Azure Application Insights. Once you have done that, you can go to the Azure Application Insight page and view the statistics, or using some third-party product, make API calls to Azure to retrieve these statistics. Let's move on to the demonstration. So let's first make our Log Analytics workspace. We simply choose a resource group, choose a location, and give it a name. Now let's create our Application Insights resource. We give it a resource group, a name, a region, and a Log Analytics workspace. Go to Resource, and from the Overview page, copy the instrumentation key. Log into the FDM, and from the FDM you can launch the API Explorer. Scroll down and find Device Metrics. And let's look for the Azure Application Insights API call. Now I'll go to my cheat sheet, and that's the instrumentation key. Let's put that into the JSON and copy that JSON and put it into the post request. Let's run the post request. From the output, we get the ID of that object, and we're going to use that in the next API call, which is a post to Device Metrics Integrations. Again, let me go to my cheat sheet here and put in the new object ID. Here we see we have two metric groups, CPU and memory, as well as an upload period of 5 minutes. Let's perform the API call. And it looks like everything turned out okay. So what I'm going to do is stress the box. You can see what I did here and wait several minutes. I created a process, and I took that process and moved it using the task set from CPU number 3 to CPU number 1. If we look at the top utility, we can see that we have that process running, very high CPU. We also have Lena and Snort running, doing their things. Very small amount of CPU in this particular snapshot. So let's go back to the Application Insights object and go to Metrics. And let's select one of these custom metrics that we created. Let's do CPU. Oh, it doesn't look so clear because it's based on 24 hours. So let's stretch it out. Now we're going to get pretty coarse description here because it's only every 5 minutes. And also, this doesn't seem to be really great information. The trick when viewing metrics in the Azure portal is to apply splitting. Let's see how that works. We will split based upon CPU. Okay, now we're getting some information here. Here we see the CPU number 1 that we loaded, and we also see Snort doing its thing. And we see that CPU 3 was pegged for a short time when we started the yes process. Thank you very much for your time.